Today, we're going to talk about the press release that Redcat have put out saying that Fat Shark are about to release some new FPV goggles. Now, in this video, I'm going to walk you through what the press release says, and then we're going to take a look at the image, and I just want to share with you some thoughts on this because there is a huge amount of speculation on this right now, and whilst we have no facts, what is very interesting about the situation is it appears that there's going to be a new design and style of goggle from Fat Shark, but not only that, they may actually be digital, but we don't know what system it's going to be using. It could be DJI, it could be HDZero, or it could be something completely different. But there's some interesting things in the image that's been shared that I'd like to talk to you guys about. So let's hop over to the desktop and take a look at what the press release says first of all. Now, looking at the statement, there's some rather interesting comments here. Just sort of paraphrasing it for you, it basically says, Redcat Holdings, a hardware-enabled software provider for the drone industry, announces that its Fat Shark subsidiary will launch a new FPV drone headset, the Dominator. The Dominator is a low-latency 1080p digital goggle with extended flight range over existing systems. Dominator headset and systems will be available for pre-orders soon and are expected to start shipping in June. There's then a little bit in brackets, which comes from Greg, which says, joining Redcat has given Fat Shark team the opportunity and resources to build an incredible next generation FPV headset. The Dominator is the first in a line of new products that should help keep Fat Shark and Redcat on the front line of innovation in the drone industry, commented Fat Shark founder Greg. Now, what's really interesting here, and we do have an image, there's an image there, but I will actually show you a full-size one in a minute, is there's some really specific things being said. So if we just dissect this a second, what we have is low latency, 1080p digital goggle. That's the three big points to take. So 1080p, I would assume, is the displays, the screens, which is really cool, quite interesting. If you add then low latency, interesting comment, can be taken for either analog or digital, but they do specifically say digital goggle. And if you combine that word with what they're saying down here, Dominator headset and systems, it would sort of imply that this isn't just another analog goggle, that it could be a digital one. Now, the term digital can be used in many different ways. You could argue Skyzone 04X is a digital because they have digital displays. In FPV, we would all say digital would be end-to-end, so the FPV system would be digital, but it can be used on a play at words if you wanted to, so I am a little bit cautious about it. But if you do look at the comments, it makes it very interesting in what they're saying, and it sort of implies digital and system and low latency, so this could be an all-out digital goggle. If we take a look at a couple of the images that have been shared, and I do want to say a big shout out to Blunty. If you don't know who Blunty is, he's the fantastic guy that supports JB. He does the news with him, and he's been posting all sorts of stuff as well. And there's been a really large image shared of what these Dominators are going to look like. Now, there is a lot to dissect here in the image itself. For instance, we clearly have 4 antenna inputs, which appear to be RPSMAs rather than SMAs. Interesting choice. Traditionally in FPV we use SMA. However, RPSMA is a standard generally used in 2.4 and 5 gig RF systems, but normally in transmitting systems, not receiving. But that doesn't mean to say they can't be used on receiving systems. It is interesting though that there are 4 antennas. So if this is a digital system, that would be similar to what we've seen from DJI or HDZero, like I've got here, that has the 2 patches and the 2 singles, or the new module that has the 4 SMAs. We can see what appears to be a switch in the middle, as well as some buttons over here. Now, there is no hint at this moment in time, if these are digital, what system they're going to use. You could easily argue it looks a bit like HDZero with the 4 antenna inputs, but you could argue more that it looks more like DJI simply because they're RPSMAs. There was also something else interesting that Blunty spotted actually with regards to the buttons here. If you look at the buttons, and if I go back to his post, Blunty actually shared this image, and it actually looks like the buttons on these goggles are the same style of button that is on the DJI FPV goggles, although there's no 4D or 5D joystick that we can see on these goggles. But it is interesting that they do look the same. This strap design is very similar to DJI strap design as well. It comes around the corner and back in and holds on Velcro, and that's virtually the same as the strap design on the DJI FPV goggles. Up front, we don't know any more than this, but we won't have to wait long to find out because Fat Shark are going to be showing these this week at Rampage. They've put a countdown on their website and we can see in 3 days, 17 hours, 6 minutes and 38 seconds, we will have more info on these goggles. And Blunty has also shared on his page as well. The link to it is back. Come and look at it at the flying session at Rampage. So, what do we know? Well, we know they're releasing some new goggles. We know that they've got 4 antennas and they've got a switch and some buttons. And they're going to be 1080p. But we don't know for sure at the moment, are they analog, digital, and if digital, what flavour digital that might be. Now, as I've been showing Blunty, it's only fair that I give him a bit of a plug. If you don't know, Blunty offers a premium FPV support service. There is a link to it on his Facebook page and you go to itsblunty.com, and by going there, you have the ability to support him via Patreon. You can support him via donations, but he will also try and help you with any issues you may have as well. He's a good guy, and if you want to get some help and support, but you want a premium service, please do consider checking it out. I will put a link to it in this video as well, simply because I mentioned him in it. Now, it is very possible they have teamed up with HDZero to release a HDZero set of Fat Shark goggles, although I will be honest, I'm not at all convinced that is the case. I think it's far more likely they would be based on a different digital system than that, based on some of the information that I've been given recently. Could they be a DJI FPV goggle? Because we know Redcat and Rotorriot have a relationship with DJI for advertising. Could there have been some form of tie-up here that says that they're going to make goggles for them? Or could this be something entirely new? And it's worth noting that Redcat also now own Teal, which is a high-end commercial industrial drone manufacturer, and they may have had some technology themselves that they were working on that Fat Shark have now been able to get access to as well. It would be interesting if Fat Shark were to release their own dedicated digital FPV system. It would be interesting that they beat Orca to the table on that one, considering Orca have announced it quite some time back in itself. But the reality is right now, we simply don't know. My personal feelings on this is one of two things. I can read this info they've shared two ways. I can read this as they are an analog goggle with better range than we've seen before because they're using quad receivers and they've got some magic that they're doing there. Although that wouldn't explain the comment digital, but as I've said, the word digital can be used as a bit of marketing play. You get cables that are called digital cables these days, and whilst all of the engineers like myself in the room scream how wrong that is, we know what marketing is like. Or they could be a set of digital goggles. There doesn't appear to be a bay on them as far as I can see. So if they are digital, will they even receive analog, or have they got analog built in as standard? The simple reality is we don't know, but it won't be long before we will find out, hopefully. Now, I think this is actually really exciting, and I'm really pleased to see Fat Shark bring something new to the table. I have been critical of Fat Shark recently, and that's simply because they feel like they've stopped. We've had users screaming about support, we've had problems with the whole HDZero thing, and it felt like they were going backwards. So nothing would please me more than to see a new set of goggles from Fat Shark that brought something new to the table. So the reality is, what we know for sure is there is a new set of goggles called the Dominators with 4 antenna inputs, a switch and a couple of buttons, with a head strap, RPSMAs, perhaps that'll change. It says 1080p, low latency, digital. Is it what we expect though? We don't know for sure, but we won't have to wait long to find out. Now, I'm really interested in what you think about this. Do you think this will be HDZero Digital? Do you think it'll be DJI? Could it be something else? Or is it just another set of analogs? Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, if you found this video interesting, please do consider hitting the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the little bell next to it as well. If you'd like to support us to keep making content like this, maybe even buy a set of these when they come out, please do check out the links to my Patreon as well as buy me a coffee. That way you're helping support the channel. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who does support via Patreon already and everyone who donates by buy me a coffee. I wouldn't be able to do this without your support. Anyway, that's it for me. Stay safe. I'll speak to you guys again soon.